really use the money. That's the main reason why we put on these events. We need to raise funds to reach out to young people and also to pay for the expenses for these kinds of events. And if you want to put some money there into the 50-50, you can win some cash. So that being said, I'm going to move into our first speaker. His name is Dan Sinclair, and he's lived in Southwest Florida since 1994. He has been actively involved in the community since 1996, being on boards of local charities and an organization that was a predecessor of the Young Professionals. And in 2002, with pressure from friends, he started the Young Professionals of Southwest Florida, the first young professional group in the state of Florida. And there he launched the Young Professionals in Naples in 2003, helped Daytona, Sarasota start, and as well as groups in Tampa, the Panhandle, Minneapolis, and other states and counties. Dan's background is in engineering and accounting. He has owned businesses in the area ranging from advertising to home building and insurance and financial planning to industrial finance. He spends most of his time in continuing education and all of his license that he possesses. So anyway, let's give it up for Dan Sinclair.
When you asked me to write a bio, I decided to be a little sarcastic. I hope that's all right. Yeah, Young Professionals, I used to be involved in a group in town called the Polo Club. It was an acronym for Professionals Organized for Leadership and Opportunity. It doesn't exist anymore, but I got pulled into that in 1996, and it was a good organization, had a lot of good parts to it. So after I'd been out of it for a few years, I had run into a couple of friends had just moved back from Florida State, and we were all at a chamber function, and they decided that we needed a chamber for people more their age group and our age group. Well, I used to be in the age group. I'm not really anymore, but originally we started it was a 21 to 35 deal, and then it was 21 to 40, and now I'm looking for someone younger to take over the group at some point because I'm getting too old for it. But we're actually going to be launching another group probably in the next year called Fusion, which is not tied to an age. We've noticed that the word young seems to bring a negative connotation for some reason. Have you experienced that? Yeah, we definitely get that. And I've noticed that with every Young Professionals group across the whole country. Okay. Well, we've noticed that both in the U.S. and Canada, if you have a young professionals group, everyone seems to always want to pigeonhole it into either being a drinking club or a dating club. And I've never quite figured out why that is, but every media group seems to want to do it, and anyone that's afraid to go to an event seems to want to put that tag on it for some reason. But the main reason I started the organization was I had noticed that people that moved to the area, if they didn't get connected to the community in the first 3 to 4 months, they pretty much got homesick and turned around and went home. So this created a bit of an attrition problem for companies like, Chico's and Hertz and Source Interlink and some of these other companies that were moving people down here and wanted them to stay. And, they get them all trained and educated, cost them a lot of money, and then the people turn around and move back. It's a bit of an issue for them. So it was one of the reasons we started the organization. We also wanted it to be fun. So we had events that we have all kinds of crazy things that we do. I mean, from beach events, boating events, we had motorcycle events, trips to Key West, trips to South Beach, but we also do a lot of networking events. Our next event is Wednesday, October 23rd. It's on the Affordable Health Care Act, just basically talking about what the act actually means, what it involves. There seems to be a lot of misinformation out there about, how it works and that kind of thing. So that's Wednesday, October 23rd at 5:30 at the Edison. I just found out I may have to fly out that week, so I might have to move it out 2 weeks. But it will be posted on the website, and I'll let you know. If anyone, the website is www.ypfl.com. No, Polo Club dissipated. It's kind of been a slow death. It was over about the last 6 or 8 years. It originally started in 1989. A lot of good people in it. got a little too political, not political in a good way, but just kind of people, I don't know, it's a long story, but it just kind of eventually died. At its peak, I think there were about 150 or 200 members. But they would have events like block parties downtown that would end up with 5,000 people. And they, when we were at the Polo Club, we also launched Jazz at the Harbor, which started Golf Harbor, which became Jazz on the Green, which doesn't exist anymore now, but it was a good fundraising event for the Children's Hospital. So, but yeah, it's gone now. So anyway, we also do events like wine tastings, which are nice little socials, different people's houses. Someone picks a theme, so they might pick Cabernets, and everyone will bring their favorite Cabernet and an appetizer. And it gives a chance for everyone to get together, go to someone's house. We'll get anywhere from 15 to 50 people. So we do that kind of stuff. Our event we're setting up for November, we're bringing the Secret Service in. They're going to speak about identity theft, and then we're going to have someone come in and speak about credit repair, obtaining business credit, and then we're going to have a financial planner come in and speak. So we're going to do a whole series on that. So it takes you from bottom to top. If you're a nice person and you're fun, then come to the organization. If you're obnoxious and you're going to drive everyone crazy, don't show up. That's pretty much it. We don't really have an age cap anymore. It kind of blew that out, mainly because I kept getting over the age gap. So when I had to start dyeing my hair, I figured I was too old. What's that? Is there a what? Is there a website? Yes. It's ypfl.com. Is in Young Professionals, Florida. For some reason, I looked at it right before I came here, and it seems the webmaster that we pay to keep the site up, it didn't pay for any of his server space. So our site, along with all of his others, got shut down today. So I'm waiting to hear back from him, find out what the deal is, and if I need to loan him a little money to get it back up, that's what I'll have to do. But it might be time to move where it goes. But it should be back up within the next day or so. We have a couple of Facebook pages. If you go to ypfanpage.com, that's one of our pages. You can just click like. If you go to yp-facebook.com, that's our main page we first put up. But we've been over the 5,000 person limit for, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years now. So you can always, if you want to be on the invite list for those, you can always just add me personally. I'm facebook.com/Dan Sinclair. And you can add me that way. So we have a sports page, too. We actually have a sports director. We have about anywhere from 8 to 11 different sports teams at any given time. A bunch of softball teams. We have a kickball team. YP Naples, which started in 2003, was a spinoff from our group, and they actually have a dodgeball tournament down there, which is a lot of fun. I can't remember what time of year it's at. I think it might be March. But they have a lot of great events. They do. Have you been to it? Springtime? Okay, cool. They also do a golf tournament. We used to do a golf tournament up here, but it was a lot of work. Actually, I had an event last year. It was a pool party at Santa Barbara Harbor Resort. I don't know if anybody went to it. We had about 1,200 people at that. It was a fundraiser for Quiet Animal Preserve. But again, that was a lot of work, and I don't feel like doing that again. So call me lazy, but it's not. It's probably not going to happen unless I get about 10 or 15 people that want to step up and do it. There is a young professionals group in Charlotte County now. Erica just took it over about a month ago. They've got a lot of energy up there, good group of people. We went up to their last event. I think that'll be a lot of fun. So it's called CCYP, so we'll get you connected with them. And then Ricky talked about doing some joint events, which I think would be great. Our events, they range. Like our wine tastings will be 15 to 50 people. You know, a pool party will be 1,200. We've had as many as 1,700 people at our events. I would say our typical networking event is anywhere from 50 to 150 people, just depending on the topic, if we have any competing events that night, that kind of thing. So, trying to think what else can we talk about? Dues. Dues are $30 a year. They, if you want to put your website and a logo up there, I think it bumps to 50 for the first time, and after that it goes to 30. But right now, if you pay, I mean, we're not charging renewal dues right now. We'll probably get around to that again in a year, but I'm not really too concerned about the dues because they never seem to go anywhere anyway. So
So you guys wouldn't mind if we were to put some money up to the young professionals?
W- No, that'd be great. Yeah. Any way we can do that would be great. What else? Any questions?
Test. Nope.
Anything else you want to know about YP? It's been around 11 years. We started at March of 2002. Naples, I started in November of 2003. They sit around, I think they're around 50 members right now, I think. We got up to about 1,100 paid members. We've got about 2,000 on our email list right now. 5,000 on our 5,100, I think, on our Facebook page, and I think around 500 on the fan page because we haven't really put much attention into it. YP Naples has.
Do you have a relationship with the Democrat Club as well?
You know, I don't. I've been meaning to reach out to all the groups, and I just haven't had a chance to. I mean, I've been getting the libertarian stuff for months, and I've never made it to one of their events. I think I've come to, 4 or 5 of yours, but I haven't made it to any of the other groups, so. Yeah.
So if we were to combine, let's say if you wanted to promote an event, we can put it on our email blast and put maybe our events on your email blast? Is that even a possibility? Is there laws that you have to follow to, I mean, it would be your decision, right?
That'd be my decision, yeah. So I don't see a problem with it. Yeah. You know, we are by the state of Florida. We're not a 501. For Chambers of Commerce, it's actually a 501c6, not a 501c3. You can do a foundation that's a 501c3. We actually started the process with some lawyers down in Naples who offered to do it, and then they kind of dropped the ball like everyone else does who offers to do it for free. And the YP group down there picked it up, and they convinced someone else to do it for them, and they formed the corporations, but we never got around to doing it. So it was just, thousands of dollars that we just didn't feel like spending on it. So we're like, why bother? I mean, our expenses ended up being more than our than our revenue anyway. So effectively, we are a nonprofit, but no, you can't donate to us that way. So, go ahead. Well, we had looked at setting up a state organization back in 2001, 2002, and there just doesn't, unless you fall. The original young professionals groups that seemed to do very well would, like, for example, Milwaukee, Houston, some of these areas where there is one large dominant chamber that covers the whole area. And they saw the need to fill that age range and provide that service for their members. So they would start a young professionals group up underneath the chamber. So they would have all the chamber resources. They had all the staff. They already had the membership lists of the companies they could send emails out to and call. They could get their support, and they had a budget. So it was easy for them to do blasts and get them built up pretty quickly. For example, we helped Sarasota get started. There was a small group starting in Sarasota, and then the chamber said, hey, we'd really like to do that. So that group just rolled under theirs, and they were up to almost as many. Like our first year, I was up to 640 members in about 9 months. I think Sarasota Chamber got up to 600 members in about just over a year. So they just about kept pace with us. And they even had a conference one year. They tried to get all the groups together from Florida. But when we tried to get an actual association together, unless the government's going to put some money into it or some other group's going to do it, when you're running all volunteer, it's kind of tough. So, but some, like Daytona, we helped start a group there. They rolled under their chamber, worked out very well for them as well. West Palm is under a chamber. I think there's a group in the Panhandle that's under a chamber. But it really depends where you go. I mean, that's the ideal scenario. In fact, in Milwaukee... Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just going to ask you, how political does the young professionals get? I mean, it's more of a networking system, am I right?
Yes. Yeah, we don't side one way or the other with any particular politics. I mean, it's, if we used to do, we've had events where we brought different politicians in during elections and we've done an event with judges too, where they came in and talked and and Dave's been involved in that. Yeah. So we've done that as a forum, but it's, when we do it, we make sure that everybody's represented. So, yeah.
Well, I'd just say that just keep us in the loop because I think a lot of us would be interested in getting involved in your organization, and hopefully they would get involved in our organization. It's kind of like like a family kind of ties there. I mean, hopefully that everyone can understand that we're all young and we all may not agree, but I think that we all have the same objective. I mean, we all want to meet people and we all want to make networks, and I think everyone's got connections in some way. So I think it would be a huge opportunity for our group. So
great. Yeah, I'd love to get YP of Lee County together. I think Charlotte would love to do it if you talk with Erica. Stephanie Weatherford runs YP Hendry County. That just started up about a year and a half ago. So she bounces her events between LaBelle typically and Clewiston. And Chad Phipps and Ryan Williams run YP Naples. So now, is there a separate YR group in Naples?
yeah,
Okay.
there's the Collier YR.
Okay. But yeah, we'd love to do joint events with you, and we could do a joint event. Like we could always do a joint event with Charlotte YP down here at a new, in between location, and YR. That might be kind of fun.
That's why we're expanding the group from here to Charlotte, because we're hoping that maybe down the road they can break away and have their own group. So that's the whole objective to that, is to grow and also promote Charlotte County on our page, and then at some point down the road they can form their own group. So
sounds like a good plan. Is that your water or mine?
no, it's yours.
Oh, okay, thanks. All right, thanks everyone.
All right, thanks, Dan.
Thanks.
I think there's a lot of opportunity here, because I think that if we can reach more young people, and even if we don't agree politically, we can also maybe have other things in common, and that way we can maybe grow our group. Sometimes we have events where, we've got hundreds of people, but then other times we don't, and I think it has to do with the event. But if we can reach and start going to other groups and start doing other things instead of focusing on what we're doing, I think it could expand, and we can do a lot more. I mean, I can open it to discussion. Does everyone agree? Yeah? Okay. All right, well, I think the next speaker really doesn't, I think everyone knows who he is. I don't think he has his binder with him today. No? All right. Jim, actually, I had something, a prop ready for you, but I completely forgot about it. Here we go. We can give you a coordination here of being a Republican. Here you go. Everyone, Jim Roach.
Thank you. I think. I could have used this today. I had bees nesting in my soffit. I had to get them out. I'm Jim Roach. If you don't know me, I'm a Republican. Kind of interesting. A little bit of a background story. I ran for Congress last year. I got more votes than any Democrat running for Congress in this area ever did, raised more money than any Democrat running for Congress in this area ever did, and was told consistently by, actually when I ran in 2010, Trey Radel had me on his show, and he said, "You don't sound like a Democrat." And then I was on Drew Steele's show, and he said, "You don't sound like a Democrat." And on both of their shows, I had the unique position of having been invited on for my 7-minute segment, and 40 minutes later, the producer coming in and saying, "A Democrat just has the longest record for being on your show, get him off." But if you look at what I did, last year we had forums, if you remember the ones in the Baptist churches. There were a couple in Naples, Marco, Cape Coral, and somewhere, I think it was Bonita. And there were 6 Republicans left running for Congress in the primary, and they graciously invited me to come to the forums. They had straw polls, and they were fairly tightly regulated straw polls, and if you've been to forums, you know the game. You get as many of your friends to show up as possible. And with 6 Republicans in the room, there was a whole room full of people that were supporting them. And I brought the same 8 Democrats every time, so I knew who they were. The odd part was, if you cumulatively added up the straw poll results, I came in second place. I came in ahead of Trey Radel in straw polls that were in mostly conservative groups. So when it came around that Dane apparently upset some people for District 77, which I am now officially a candidate for, which is Cape Coral basically, all the people that came and asked me to run were Republicans. And we talked about it, and the obvious way to do that if you're going to run against an incumbent is to be a Republican. And it was a conversation, but it wasn't anything really surprising that I switched. If you were looking at me when I ran my campaign, we had meetings almost every week with a diverse group of people, Republicans and Libertarians and Democrats and Occupy people. And anybody that ever showed up to those meetings knew if they really wanted to get their hands slapped and get thrown out, all they had to do was start bashing Republicans as these awful people, because I kept saying they're not. They're our neighbors. They're people that, for whatever reason, have a different viewpoint than you do, but you don't have to get nasty. It's just not, there's no reason to do that. There's enough nastiness out there now. So the decision for me to change, yeah, we're on camera, it'll be repeated. I actually ran out of Democrats to irritate. Well, maybe not. Do you have any, I didn't want to talk a long time. If you know a little of my history, I'm a combat decorated veteran. I read the laws. If you watched me last year, I was purported to be the big Obamacare proponent. And I think I'm the only political person in Southwest Florida that realized this law is going to impact every business, it's going to impact our government, it's going to impact every individual. I probably ought to read it so I know what I'm talking about, so I can say this is bad, this is good, this is bad, because it's coming. It had already been passed. It was sitting there, all actually 1,200 pages. And I read it. I met with Jim Nathan. I met with the guy that runs Gulf Coast Village. I really wanted to learn how it worked. So as a Republican now, you may want to ask me about what I know about that, because there's some things that really need to be fixed in there, or can be good ammunition to say, no, we don't want that. I'm very realistic about that. It's, you know, people are signing up for it. It's embedded in Medicare. But I think we have an opportunity as a party to take advantage of the free market stuff that's in there and grab that and push it into a real free market, state-run system. There's room to do that if you understand how they wrote the law. So I can be an advantage for those of you that think that I'm some sort of a flip-flopper. Yeah, I'm not. I'm really not a big political party person. I spend all of my time trying to figure out on Common Core, you know, why, if it's that good, they just didn't give it to the states and said, you'll see how good it is and you'll use it. And if you don't want to use it, that's fine. But they didn't do that. It came down as one of those mandates. When I was working with liberal people, I learned how to talk to them about gun control, which is very hot topic with some liberal people. They think a deer rifle with a piece of plastic on it is the whole reason people shoot each other. And yelling at them about Second Amendment rights is talking to a different question than what they're asking. I learned how to convince them that, you know, that's not where we want to go. It doesn't fix anything. Second Amendment rights are in our Constitution. I know Mr. Shestokas back there, and anytime I stray from the Constitution, he lets me know. But I have that ability of focusing on data and what's right and what the facts are. So we started last week on my campaign. We met Thursday afternoon, and I had Republicans, and I never asked anybody what their party was. But we started researching what does District 77, Southwest Florida, need to have happen in Tallahassee so that our businesses get better, so we don't have crazy things. My wife taught kindergarten on Pine Island for 34 years, and our government agencies have scope creep, is what I call it, where if you leave them alone long enough, you don't have a reset button on them, they start doing more stuff. And the last year my wife taught, OSHA actually came in and took the whiteout away from her because it was dangerous in her classroom. So I'm familiar with, you know, some of the things we could do a lot better. But it's just, you know, if you want to get past the rhetoric, that's the other thing I found. We hold every single partisan seat in Lee County. Every elected official is a Republican in Lee County in a partisan race. all of those are decided in the primary. I don't think we need to be as harsh on people that don't have a R next to their name. There's a lot of independents, there's a lot of Democrats that I know that are much more conservative than some of the Republicans I know. I would like to lift our party up a little bit and say, you know, we got all the seats, we won. I don't think we need to kick you anymore. Maybe we could reach out and convince you that, you know, you need to tell your congressman or senator or whoever you talk to that the facts about gun control are taking away assault weapons and making smaller magazines has nothing to do with the amount of gun violence. So don't go there. Look at the facts. I think we can do that in a calm manner. It's hard to do that if you smack them in the head first and say, oh my God, you know, you're going to take away my guns, and you know, when you show up my door, you'll get, you know, my first bullet. That usually doesn't work well. So my goal as a state representative running for the State House District 77, which isn't right here, it's about 2 miles that way, is to deal with facts, to deal with what's right and have input from you and anybody else in this area so that we do the right thing first and the party thing second. It's still important that we have, you know, party alliances, but not at the expense of the truth. I found out I'm not able to lie. Maybe it's being married to a kindergarten teacher, maybe it's the way I was raised, but you can ask some of the Democrats I worked with when it came down to stuff that I didn't believe was true, I would fight them. And just like you'll find that with me. I'm not going to agree with you on everything. But I will tell you the truth, and I will know more than anybody else about the facts. And if that's the kind of person you want running your government up in Tallahassee and representing you, then I'm good. If you want somebody that's going to do exactly what the party tells them, which is who we have now, then, you know, fine, keep him. But I think we need that refreshing side, somebody that has a little bit different perspective that didn't come up through the party ranks. I came up through being in the Army, being a military contractor with the Pentagon, being invited by both presidents of Microsoft to speak on stage with them. You know, I've had a very interesting full life, and my perspective is different than if I would have come up through the political system. You know, I'm very conservative when it comes to our Constitution. The thing that was in the Cape Coral Breeze that Dane backed out on the Second and Fourth Amendments, I liked it. I would have supported it. And he irritated a whole group of people that are constitutionalists by saying, yeah, I'm with you, yeah, I'm with you, yeah, I'm with you. No, I'm not. So, but anyway, I didn't want to talk too long on that. I think most of you know me a little bit if you saw my campaign. I know more than the average person. I did bring something. Can you pass those out? I've been looking at our Lake Okeechobee thing because we've got billions of dollars in losses to our businesses. And the state and the Army Corps of Engineers is doing a fairly good job on fixing the quantity of water, and that's going to take a long time. They got to make the river crooked again. They got to have places to store the water. But they're not doing much on the quality of the water. And if you don't know, the water that comes out of Lake Okeechobee, the two bad things in it, the worst things are the nitrogen and phosphorus. They're the fertilizer stuff that gets in our waters and makes algae blooms. What you may not know is after it leaves Okeechobee, it almost triples in nitrogen and phosphorus content by the time it gets to us. It doesn't come out of the lake that way. We add to it. And if you look at the little flyer, 12 million tons of manure a year are produced by our livestock, and we let them put it on top of the ground. Or in some cases, they'll till it in a couple of inches. Other areas with same water quality issues have realized they can put it down about 8 inches of the ground. There's no runoff. Therefore, you cut back a lot of the nutrients getting in the water. And the only reason I brought this is so you can actually leave tonight and tell somebody you heard a former Democrat that's now a Republican speak, and he actually knows his shit. Sorry, well, it was funny back there, but you got him. Good. I know. And you'll also learn my sense of humor is not that good, but it's the level at what we have to look at things to see if there's a solution that doesn't cost a lot of money, that doesn't require the federal government or the state government doing something different. This is actually cost effective for the farmers. And that's what I always do. What's the right thing to do? And you get input from people, which any of you would like to come and next Thursday and visit with me, or this Thursday at Dublin Ale House at 4:30 in Cape Coral. You will get the same polite treatment as everybody else. We don't bash people. All we do is listen, and we try to figure out what the facts are. I think I've talked long enough.
Do you want to take questions?
Absolutely. It's
All
more
right.
fun that way.
Should I start it off and then
Sure. And then Dave had
and then
his
everyone else
hand
can
up
follow
next.
through or follow my lead? So yeah, I'll do that. I'm going to start off with a question, then we'll just move around.
Sure.
Why do you believe you will be a better representative than our current representative?
Do we have an hour? I'm disappointed that our representative seems to have this pattern of meeting with people and agreeing to do things, and then when he gets up to leadership, being told no, and then coming back and saying, oh, well, no, I'm not going to do it. You either, if you're in it and you believe it, you stick with it, and you, like the Second Amendment paper that he got that was in the paper. But other than that,
I'd say if you can explain that just a little bit, because I don't think everyone understands what happened there.
there was a group, Southwest Florida Citizens Initiative, which meets in Bonita Springs, I think, or somewhere, Estero. And they put together, and I think David knows more about exactly the language, but if we start him talking, I won't get to talk. But it was simply something that took the state of Florida and said, people call it states' rights, but it's technically powers given to the state by us voters, and said, we want to do with Second Amendment gun stuff in the border of Florida what we want to do, and if we enact laws to do that, that's a good thing. And then under the Fourth Amendment, David, remind me that was kind of supported being able to do that, didn't it? No. All right.
More in the range of the 10th Amendment, Jim. I know the folks talked.
All right.
But
well, either way.
But in essence, what the proposal was in fact to, and there's like proposals already been passed in Kansas and several other states that essentially say within the borders of this state, we will regulate our guns, and any federal laws are null and void.
Yes.
In essence, and that was to comply with the Second Amendment and mix it in with the restrictions of the Commerce Clause.
And I felt that was worthwhile for us, the type of conversation we need to have in Tallahassee, because our people in Tallahassee, and I've been up there enough times, I got thrown out of the Senate hearing once, but it was for a good reason. I was the only citizen to show up to testify, and Senator Gates threw me out. But our group in Tallahassee doesn't do a very good job of deciding whether they like what comes from Washington or not. They don't have those discussions openly. It's like they get something coming down and they say, well, let's talk about this. And then they do something, and I think we need more teeth in our laws to say, no, if it's something, it needs to come out, we need to talk about it. Next, now he's got his hand. Okay. The question was, what do I feel about what's going on in Washington now? I'm guessing you're talking about the shutdown and the defunding and all that stuff. And there's really... Right. There isn't, and there hasn't been for years. Our system, and I'm more of a systems person, that's what I did with the Pentagon or with General Motors when I worked there. If they had a dysfunctional group, they would call me, and I'd go in and find out the difference between why they weren't doing what they were supposed to do by looking at what incentives there were to do the opposite. And we have built a political system that doesn't incentivize people to sit down and talk on either side. And they'll do some stuff, but then the 24-hour news cycle kicks in, and then the commenters kick in, and then the party people kick in and say, well, you know, you really need to say it this way and not that way. And 20 years ago, it wasn't that bad. It wasn't really good, but it's gotten worse. I think some of it is the way the money is controlled. I think some of it's the way the party dictates to people how they have to vote as a block and instead of having discussions, and that's on both sides. So I'm not really happy with what they're doing. However, it does point out that our system can come to a stop if they can't agree on things, which is sort of how it was set up in the Constitution, that, you know, if you really can't agree, we've got 3 separate parts and 2 sides of our Congress with our party system. I would like to see them get past this. I remember when they all talked about single issue bills, and if you separated it out and did it, that's fine. But I don't see that happening. I don't know how it's going to turn out. And I'm not in Washington. I don't have access to all of the backroom deals that go on up there. But it certainly seems like something that doesn't make either party look good. And I was talking to Matt earlier. I'm a big statistician person. I've looked at the Republican Party and the Democratic Party in the last 12 years, and we've each lost about 20% of our voters. And that's not a good sign. And I think things like this impasse, that they can't sit down and say, yeah, we really hate each other on this point, but we've got to come to a solution, because eventually they have to come to a solution. And they don't seem able to sit down. And yes. And it's, if by they you mean both sides do that on their key issues, and they purposely put poison pills in, yes. And there's, you know, they could sit down and talk. They don't. And that's another.
Well, but that's right now. That's
Yes, it is, and I would think they should all sit down and talk.
Mr. Roach,
Yes, sir.
if I may. 2 things. As you mentioned regarding the Second Amendment proposed legislation, I am familiar that Mr. Regal had told a group several times in a row that he was about to introduce and sponsor such legislation to support Second Amendment rights within the state of Florida. Then, from my understanding, as you mentioned, talked to leadership and got direction from other people besides citizens that he had made promises to, and consequently backed out on that promise. From that standpoint, if I'm not mistaken, something similar happened that had an adverse impact on the Lee Memorial Health System that I believe you know a great deal about in your
Yes.
policy information that you have. I think that story is probably worth sharing with the
Okay.
folks here.
And that is a good one, because we have a choice in Florida at the State House between what the House wants and what the Senate wants for dealing with uninsured people that plug up our emergency rooms. And Senator Negron and the Republicans in the Senate had a plan that essentially got rid of about 1 million people that were uninsured, so they'd get out of the emergency rooms and they wouldn't add to our insurance because they don't pay and then we have to. The House said, no, we don't want to do that. We want to come up with our own additional plan. I think it was $100,000 a year, or $200,000 a year. I forget how much it cost, but it only covered 100,000 people and left 1 million people uninsured. And frankly, I don't care if you don't think they deserve insurance or not. Financially, what the House did and why Jim Nathan and Lee Memorial and the Southwest Florida Chamber of Commerce are so upset with our 4 local representatives is it pulled $220 million a year out of the Lee County economy and sent it to Washington, and it never came back. And the choice was, and it's one of those entanglement things that I understand about the law, is whoever wrote the law set it up so that you're kind of stuck if you don't do that. But in the end, and that's why Jim Nathan's running around, and actually the Chamber of Southwest Florida is saying, go with the Republican Senate plan. put the $220 million back into Lee County because we're losing jobs and we're going to lay off people, and those are hard numbers. And I agree with that. And you may not agree with it because politically it's not good, but financially it's good. And other states are finding out that it's not a bad thing. And other states that turn that money down, like Texas and Louisiana, get money in the billions so that they weren't at financial risk. Florida came to the table late. They're not getting the billions that Texas and Louisiana are to make up for not expanding Medicaid, which the Florida Senate plan didn't expand Medicaid. It gave the money to private insurance companies, and they competed, and they got those people out of the emergency rooms. And it's just a cost shift. If you let uninsured people go to the emergency room when they're sick, it's more expensive. We have to make it up because they don't pay. If you stick them on something like an HMO version of Medicaid, they go to a primary care physician. Half of them don't end up in the emergency room. We pay less. And it's kind of a wash. But Dane came out definitely with Will Weatherford and the House saying, no, we won't do it, and we can't trust that money from Washington. Now, what you may not know, the $5 billion a year coming from Washington to pay for this, that they said, no, they don't trust it. If you look at the Florida budget, there's $24 billion that comes from Washington in the base Florida budget every year. So you can't really say, I don't like federal money. Sure.
All right. We're going to take turns, but let's make this quick.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. My understanding is that in the end, the plan Mr. Eagle wound up voting for cost his constituency $220 million. And
Yes.
that was at the direction of leadership, correct? Rather than voting in something in favor of his constituency.
Yes. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that there are a lot more uninsured people in Lee County and in Cape Coral than there are in other areas. And financially, it really hurt us. But you had a follow-up on that? Don't throw anything at me.
This is really.
I don't know what you said.
At the Republican meeting, 2 Saturdays ago, both Nathan and some other gentleman was there. And Terrence said, it's not what Nathan says. It's not really cash. It's in credits. And you get something from the government, and it's not free. This is the first year that the government has promised to give the money the first year. There's nothing that says that we're going to get it the second year and the third year. And I think that Dane is doing a great job.
Well, if we all liked the same thing, we'd all be married to my wife. But I will point out a couple of things. That the Medicaid 95% money is 10 years that they promised to pay for that. But they pay us $24 billion a year, every year anyway, and always have, because we get road taxes back, we get educational money back. Hi, Chris. Oh, there's somebody else with a tie.
Another question for you.
Sure.
You'd mentioned Common Core. What is your stance on Common Core, and why do you feel that way?
I've taught I taught for General Motors in a community college. I actually taught some graduate level classes, even though I'm not officially a teacher. I was an engineer. Common Core was one of those things that might have been a good idea, might not. They had a whole bunch of smart people get together. I don't know if they validated what was in it. But our educational system, I've watched, my wife's taught for 34 years. I had a mini school system within General Motors with 50 training centers, with 250 instructors. We revamped our whole training system because over the years, what our teachers were doing at General Motors and what's happened in our school systems locally is we're not getting the outcomes. We're not getting the outcomes, and what they do is add more management, and they take away more money from the teachers and more assistant time from the teachers. So right now, compared to when my wife started teaching 30 years ago, there's about 25% less time the teachers actually get to teach. I see Common Core as the guts of it. I haven't really looked deeply at it. I know they're trying to sell it really hard, that it's a better way to teach, but it's just one more thing that the teacher is going to be doing instead of teaching. I think teaching should be much more local. I think the Lee County school system should be broken up into smaller pieces. And I've seen, interesting side story, when I worked for General Motors, we had principals. They were called managers in all our training centers. And it was a promotion. I mean, this was an executive level job. You were a teacher, you did instructional design, you went in the field, and they promoted you to run a training center. And somebody pointed out, oh, that was me, all they do is make sure the air conditioning works and the lights are on. They don't go in the classrooms because we've loaded up the classrooms with all these pre and post tests and all the data. So that kind of runs on autopilot. And we ended up, and it's almost the same thing in our schools with our principals. Hope nobody's a principal. But we ended up changing the career path, and we took the maintenance guy, and when he got to a point where he needed to be promoted, we made him training center manager because he opened the doors and turned the lights on. We empowered the instructors to do more individually so that if you were in Maine, you didn't have to teach 87 air conditioning classes. And if you were in Arizona, you didn't have to teach a whole bunch of heating classes and how that part worked as much. And by decentralizing it, we were able to better serve our customers. And we put the responsibility on the individual training centers to make sure that the people that came out could actually fix cars better. And I could see our education system being a lot better. We have a huge amount of overhead that could be put into more time in the classroom, more help for the teachers in the classrooms that they're teaching. I don't know if you know it now, but in kindergarten, first grade, and second grade, every Friday, they have to test those kids. And at that age level, at least kindergarten and first, it takes all day to go through the tests. No teaching gets done. It's 1 day a week. And then there's the big tests and all the other ones. So Common Core to me was just another great plan that some bunch of eggheads thought up that I don't care if it's good or bad, it's not helping the problem, which is we have this homogeneous school system that has layer upon layer of rules, and all those rules do nothing more than take time away from the teachers. And they're the ones that really should be teaching. Yes.
Thank you, Jim. Theodore Pearsall. I've appreciated some of your answers so far, bringing it back to the state. I want to ask you maybe a multi-step question, starting with taking it from a voting level. Would you have voted for the Affordable Care Act? Yes or no?
I love those questions. If I was, all right. At that time, well, you have to change rules around. I don't like the way they did it. I watched for a year when the Republicans and Democrats worked in committee on the bill, and I watched the Democrats say no to almost everything the Republicans wanted. But it was a year they worked on it. They all knew what was in it. Now that it's out, because you really, healthcare is one of the most difficult things to really understand. There's a lot of easy answers, free market and get the government out of it and all that stuff. But in reality, it's a lot harder than that. We have built, since we let employers provide insurance in the 40s, we've built the most complex, convoluted delivery system of repair. I think Jim Nathan uses that. We repair a lot, but we don't do a lot of health stuff. So at the time, if the choice was no, don't do anything and let the cost keep going up, or yes, do something but have it, both parties have input to it, yeah, I probably would have voted for it. But it's not saying at all that I like what happened.
And today, would you do the same?
Yeah, it's the same answer. It gets back to nobody will sit down at the table unless there's a political gain. The truth is, we spend, a sixth of our economy is healthcare. No other modern country spends that much per capita. It was killing the competitiveness or businesses. And it was killing the cost for individuals to buy it. We pay 2.5 times more than the average of any other country. And that's expensive. So to fix that, yes, I would have worked very hard to make better decisions. I have a feeling that a lot of people that worked on that panel, you could almost see the silhouette of the drug companies and the lawyers and the medical equipment companies and insurance companies. They were all in that room. And it's really hard to get an output of good legislation when millions of dollars are being spent to sway the output. So we have to fix our healthcare system. Is there a better way to do it? Absolutely. And I think, and that's another topic, I think we can get ahead of what we're stuck with, because I don't think they're going to defund it. I don't think they're going to repeal it. I'm a realist. In the last 3 years, this has embedded in places you don't even know about, and to undo that is going to be almost impossible. But if you get ahead of it and drive it to a free market system, which we accidentally did with the exchanges, and what we could do on a lot of other issues, I think we could make it better. But there's no good. Our healthcare system is a nightmare.
Hey Jim, I got a tough question for you.
All right.
All right. I have heard this from a lot of conservative Republicans and even a few Democrats. So I'm just throwing this out there. Are you running as a Republican? Reason for switch, change of ideology, or simply just to win a race?
Well, that's an easy one to answer.
No? Yes?
I'm still who I was, and I don't pretend to tell anybody I'm ever different. I didn't fit the ideology of the Democrats. I don't fit all the ideology of the Republicans. But enough Republicans came to me, lots of Republicans came to me, and they showed it with straw poll results, they showed it with emails, and said, we would like you to run as a Republican so you can win, because what you do is more Republican than Democrat, and we like that. But I am always going to be honest, and I'm always going to look for the facts. If you knew how many hours I spent trying to figure out where the hidden bad stuff in the healthcare law is, or where the root cause of our immigration laws are, or even the stuff with the water in the Caloosahatchee, you don't do that unless you're committed to doing the right thing. And the right thing may not always be the right thing for the party, and I'm sorry. That's why I have such a diverse group of people working to develop issue stuff, because sometimes in this area, unique to us, we're food and beverage industry, and we're real estate, and we're construction, and some farming, but not much here. That's different than metropolitan areas. And I don't think we have fair representation of those needs in Tallahassee or in Washington. So I work very hard to get past the rhetoric, get past what I hear on MSNBC or Fox, which I finally got rid of cable so I don't have to see either. And I read for myself. And I think the party, and I've talked to people within the party, our party, are realizing my perspective is different. And even if I lose, I'll make Dane a better state rep, because he's going to have to step up and be more forceful. He's going to have to not commit to people just because there's 3 of them and 1 of him. He's going to have to say no then, or if he commits, he's going to have to go back to Tallahassee and say, no, I told him I can't turn around. But I think we're going to win anyway. But I don't know if that's the answer. That's me. I tried to tell people what I thought they wanted to hear, and I just can't do that. But I'm always going to be smarter than the other guy, because I'm going to find out, because you have to be. I don't know anybody else in the political area that's put as much time into learning how to fix our immigration problems, how to fix our healthcare system. And it's not, I don't talk to people that agree with me. It's a waste of time. I talk to people that don't. And if that's something we can all understand better and get out there and interact with people, because most people want the same stuff.
Well, I have to say that you have stuck it through. I mean, this is what, your third?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know. Third.
So you can't say that you don't want it. You really, really care, obviously. There's other people out there that just run for the first time, win, and are in it for themselves. And then there's others that really,
Yeah.
deeply, you can almost tell that they really care. Am I right?
Yes. This is not something I do for the money. Of course not. It's certainly not anything I'm going to do for a career. I'm 61. For me, a few years to get things more honest and more in front of us voters instead of done, offline or in committee, and get our area to be valid input, where we just don't have one person up there. We have hundreds of people that have talked to me and worked through more than just sound bites and said, no, here's, I understand if you did this, this is bad. If you did this, this is bad, which is less bad, or maybe there's something different. Yes.
Just had a question on, actually, a couple questions. What was your feeling on Ted Cruz's pseudo filibuster? You can just say yes or no if you like that or not. But the other one that is more specific a little bit is you mentioned free markets in this Affordable Health Care Act, Obamacare. And then you also brought up the shadows in the background of the medical device people and the pharmaceutical companies. See, how do how do we get to deal with those guys there where they're competing for our money instead of through the government? Free markets.
Yes. The whole filibuster thing in the Senate, I think, is a great sideshow, and it's a way constitutionally to stop things that people feel very strongly about. But the average people I talk to, and myself, that's the part of politics I don't like. But he felt strongly. I don't know about the Dr. Seuss part, but I didn't watch it. I was busy trying to figure out stuff on the Caloosahatchee. I will mention, since you brought up how do you get past the pharmaceuticals and the lawyers and all the special interest groups, and I went and listened to Ray Judah talk about the Caloosahatchee, and him and a group, there's like 5 or 6 different conservation groups that realize that we're losing billions of dollars in business. There are people that are not coming back as tourists, and that's our business here. And it hurt us financially. And Ray, well, this is going to be online, that's all right. I mean, Ray talked about the sugar companies and how, we're going to get and I stood up in the meeting and I said, so tell me again, we're a group, and we want the water better, and we've got some representatives, and the 2 big sugar companies spend $3 million a year in Tallahassee. Who do you think's going to win? And that's the issue we have in trying to get these things through. The pharmaceuticals will donate more than you do. The lawyers will donate more than you do. My take is we're supposed to be the ones telling Tallahassee, telling Washington, telling the party, this is what we need. And at some point, we have to break through that and be louder and be pulled together better as a group and be very factual instead of misinformation and sound bites and stuff that, we're so divided in.
People that are in the shadows for this Health Care Act in the background, these lawyers, where's this free market that we can get? And that's,
Oh, you want to know the free market side of our
I want to know
healthcare?
the free market side. I mean, that's, what about health savings accounts, high deductibles,
And those are all things that, yes.
I know the exchange the exchanges will allow for free market between lower costs. I have a roommate who says, oh, they're bringing costs down in California. Well, if you look at those, plans, they're watered down, and you're going to you can't see your doctor, I mean, where's this supposed free market that you've mentioned that we can work within this healthcare? I just don't see it there.
Well, that's, I think what we're going to have to do is grab that law and drag it over to the health savings account. The deductibles are pretty high as it is. the exchanges, because we opted out as Florida and the 26 other states, that formed a very nice cross-state exchange and drove prices down. But, if we push more into that, and because we've got the insurance companies regulated, they can make 15%, which is 10% more than other countries give them. And we've agreed that we're going to have private insurance companies. They just can't make all the decisions anymore because they were pretty tough on us with pre-existing conditions, and if you had a plan with a cap on it, when you ran into the cap, they wheeled you out of the hospital. So I think we can grab that and go forward, because it is the core of what lowered the price for all the people that are getting it is the exchange, because we took people that couldn't get it at work, and if you ever tried to buy private insurance, it's expensive. I can't buy it.
I know. I've tried.
Yeah. But now we've got, interesting, about 34% of the people in Cape Coral are between 50 and 64. That's a huge block of people that, if they wanted to retire early, or they did and had to buy their own insurance, they're going to get good rates. If there's another group, about 30%, that have at least one child under 18 at home. So you're looking at almost 2/3 of the voters in Cape Coral are in the groups that are going to make out like bandits. And as Republican and conservative as they are, we're not normal. We're here talking about politics. They're watching TV, they're home. They're going to see my premium is cheap, if they do. And it looks like that. They're not going to plug up the doctors. There's going to be a gradual ramp up. They're going to add more doctors. They're going to shift everybody to see the nurse practitioner, but they're not going to wait and go to the emergency room. And if they're looking at their wallet, it's that group of people, which is a huge group of Republicans, is going to have to look at, well, it's bad, but I'm going to go ahead and get it because it's cheap.
Hey, Jim,
Yes.
we're going to take one more question, and then we're going to wrap it up. All right, here you go.
Jim,
Thanks for your question.
two quick questions for you.
You weren't here earlier.
Cape Coral Chamber candidate for him.
I know.
Got an election over there in Cape Coral. Anyone who's a Cape Coral resident, please vote November 5th. Two questions. The first is the exchanges in Florida. We're still having that debate in the House and the Senate, how that's going to be set up. So if you're a freshman representative, what do you bring to the table? How do you persuade anyone in Tallahassee to either set up an exchange or not set up an exchange? What do we do there? And the second question, also as a new representative, gaming and the issue of gaming in the state of Florida, what do you do there?
All right. Well, the first question, I think you were talking about for individuals. You weren't talking about Medicaid expansion. You were talking about setting up a Florida exchange, and I think that's a bad idea because we do better off with multi-state exchanges, which is what we wanted a long time ago anyway. It's competition. So I think that's a good thing. On Medicaid expansion, I would go with the Republican Senate plan instead of the House plan, but that's a whole other story we already talked about. Gaming, a few years ago when we talked about this, when I was running for Congress the first time, we still had a contract with the Indians that said, we're going to honor this until 2014, 2015, somewhere in that area. You get to do the gaming. And we were trying to weasel around that and say, no, we just said that, but we want to do that. Now that contract with them is up, or that agreement's up next year, I think, or the year after. But the reports I've read on gaming are saying that it's not the windfall money that it used to be. And I don't think we've done very thorough reports. I think the last report I read was from one of the gaming companies that said, well, if you want us to come in, we will, but you're not going to make any money on it. And we're going to make a little money, but it's not going to be the money you think it is. So for me, that's my libertarian side, is if you want to have a casino and you want to go there, fine. you can do that if it's a good business plan and you want to do it. But I don't know if it's going to gain Florida the tax revenue that they thought it would. But I'm not against adding more casinos. I just don't think it's a moneymaker for the community or the state.
All right.
Hey.
Hey, I
got
think
it.
we've reached the end.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming. Talk with both at the same time. Okay. No problem. Hey, I know that we said we were going to raffle some stuff off last go around at our fundraiser at Vino Picasso, but we decided not to, and we're going to hold off until December. So if you want to buy a raffle ticket, this is the best time to do it, or possibly next month. But the only thing we're doing next month is this Princess Cruises event that's going to be on November 7th. So if you want to buy a raffle, and if you take a look at the table over here, the raffle in that clear little box there's not a whole lot of raffle tickets in there. We've accumulated that in 6 months, and maybe actually longer than that. I think it's been, 8 months? And we haven't got a whole lot of tickets. So tickets are $2 a piece, and you win either that throw that's hanging above that rafter right there, that Republican throw. And we got the Obama punching bag. We got the Reagan quotes right here, and it's in a frame. And then we've also got, we're just going to start giving stuff away. So if you really want to win any of this stuff, and I'd say your odds are pretty good right now. I'd say maybe there's about 20, maybe 30 tickets in there. Go ahead and purchase a couple tickets. Other than that, I think that's pretty much it. So does anybody want to say anything before we close it up? No? All right. Thanks for coming.